Get the read from Douglas Holtz-Eakin, the former Congressional Budget Office Director. Doug, I'm looking at these markets. I'm looking at the environment that's producing this sell-off and now has all the major averages well into bear market territory, although the Dow goes in and out. What do you make of that disconnect?
Well, I think the market is just catching up with the reality that the Fed is going to have to be quite aggressive in order to get this inflation under control, and that Jerome Powell has made a very clear case that it will take a long time for that to happen. When they began this tightening cycle, he said it would take several years to hit their 2% target. I don't think people paid enough attention to that. He said they would get to neutral as expeditiously as possible. They aren't even to neutral yet, and people are realizing if you've got inflation that's somewhere in the 6 to 8% range, even 3% inflation or interest rates isn't close to neutral. So there's a lot more work to do. They're going to do it quickly, and then they're going to have to stay up for a sustained period of time. That's a bad news scenario for the financial markets, and I think they're realizing that. And as you know, there's a drip, drip, drip of other bad news in the world. Russia's calling up 1 million additional troops, so the Ukraine conflict is going to drag on. Europe is facing a really, really tough economic outlook. China's dead in the water. There's not a lot of bright spots on the growth in the global economy, and I think that's what you're seeing.
Climate change, whatever people's views on that, Doug, and we all want a clean planet, clean water, clean air, I get that. But it's expensive. And we're already hearing, even from a former Barack Obama energy official, saying, we've got to pivot a little bit here. We can be all in on all energy, including what we have in abundant supply here. Britain is making that move right now to explore more North Sea oil production and not shying away from climate change and all of the other things that come with it, but just reprioritizing for the time being. Again, I'm not following word for word what the president's saying right now, but he's saying that it's a front burner and a big issue concern for him, not the markets, not inflation, climate change. And I'm just thinking of all of these other nations, particularly in Europe, that have pivoted, that have moved to the reality of the moment, and we're not.
I have been baffled by this administration's approach to climate change. I mean, if you care about climate, you care about what comes out. You don't demonize what fuels go in. And their strategy is built on taking valuable energy sources off the table. That's not a particularly rational strategy. All of the deep research on the economics of climate change showed that natural gas and other fossil fuels would be in the mix for decades to come, even as you made the transition to cleaner fuels and controlled the emissions from the economy. So that's the research. This strategy is not based on anything approaching the research reality. It's a very risky bet on solar and wind, and it doesn't make sense from the perspective of the broader social goals that we have. Sustained rises in the standard of living, sustained ability to get people to work, and a clean environment. You can do all those at the same time, but this strategy doesn't allow it.
Douglas, you think about it, too, with this sell-off and the concerns you built it really got going with the inflation that some attribute to all this trillions of dollars in government spending. Jamie Dimon was pounding that on his Capitol Hill appearances with other bankers this week. Now, many liberal members took offense to that, but I'm not here to debate the politics as much as let's say that this has really sapped available funds from the American people because the government is hoarding them. Jamie Dimon's message is it makes the Federal Reserve's mission more difficult. It's trying to unwind a balance sheet of trillions of dollars, and now the government has piled on trillions more. So money being shoved out as they're trying to get money shoved back.
Well, you and I have talked about the inability of Congress to get the fiscal situation under control for a long time. And even while they're praising themselves for the Inflation Reduction Act, they're passing a CHIPS and Science bill with $300 billion of deficit spending, a Veterans Pact bill with $600 billion of deficit spending. And, it's business as usual. It doesn't matter what you do in one bill. It matters what you do overall. And overall, Congress continues to spend now and promise to pay for it later, which is fundamentally an inflationary bent. And the Fed has to lean against it. So they're in conflict. They're not working together. And it's really time for the Congress administration to clean up their act. It's long overdue.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin, good seeing you again, and thank you for pivoting yourself with the news of the moment.